So JoAnne, could you tell me 2 or 3 women who, whether they're from church history or from the Wesleyan holiness movement, 2 or 3 women who everyone should know about?
Well, first of all, I think Phoebe Palmer is such an example of a powerful woman that preached being filled with the Spirit. She preached sanctification. That was her motto. That's what she preached. And she was challenged that she shouldn't be, as a woman, she shouldn't preach. And so I always love it, she responded back with a 100-page booklet on the promise of the Father. She didn't just give 3 sentences, but a 100-page booklet. But it happened because of a tragedy in her life. Her husband's a physician. They lived in New York City. A lamp, of course, in those days they had lamps. And so this kerosene lamp fell in the baby bed and burned up the baby. And so that's when she knew she was a proper woman in the Methodist church there. But she knew she had to have something more. And that's when she began to seek God and was filled with the Holy Spirit and sanctified. So she began to open up her home for a Bible study on Tuesday morning called the Tuesday Morning Meeting for the Promotion of Holiness. Didn't have a real classy name. She didn't have a good marketer there, but anyway, hundreds of people came to that Tuesday morning meeting. And then from there, she went on and had then sort of, I guess we would call large crusades, I guess they called them at that time, but large meetings here in the United States and in England, and literally impacted what would be referred to as the holiness movement at that time. But when I read her words, they're so powerful and so filled with the Spirit of God. And she talks about, she calls out women and says, may your life be a resurrection, that the resurrection of the gifts of women need to rise and so forth. But she preached, totally the gospel of Jesus Christ in very powerful ways, and thousands came to the Lord. Second person of whom Phoebe Palmer influenced was Katherine Booth. And Katherine Booth heard about Phoebe Palmer and went to some of her meetings when she was in England. And it was through that Katherine Booth then said God called her to move on out and to preach, of which finally William Booth said she could. And there's stories of her filling big stadium, convention center type things in England, night after night of 8,000 to 10,000 people for weeks and weeks at a time. So the power of the Spirit was really moving there. And I think about Katherine Booth. She would be with a prostitute on the streets at night, and yet the next day would lobby Queen Victoria to change the laws. So they say that when she died, 50,000 people filed past her coffin of all classes that filed past. And then another woman that Phoebe Palmer influenced much was Amanda Smith. And Amanda Smith was a freed slave who had come, they referred to her as a washerwoman, had almost no education, 2nd grade maybe. And she came to Phoebe Palmer's Bible studies in the Tuesday morning meeting of the Promotion of Holiness. And here she was filled with the Spirit. And she went throughout the world. She went to India, and Bishop Thoburn, who was a leading bishop in India at that time, said that there had been no one more effective in the whole subcontinent of India than Amanda Smith. She was there many years and did much work in the West Indies. So those are 3 women that come to my mind at this moment, that you just look at what they did, the power of God through them.
Are we in the Wesleyan Church ordaining women? Do you have any sense of the amount of women we're ordaining, and maybe then just the encouragement that you would have for women who are feeling called to ministry?
Well, I believe God's calling more women today than He ever has, and that's also a very interesting trend that happens during times of the movement of renewal and the movement of the Spirit. There's also an increase in women being called. I think probably women are always called, but there's more of an increase in women responding. That might be a better way. And so many women are responding to the call of God at this time, and my words to them would be just respond to that call and open to whatever God calls you. Don't be afraid. Don't think you have to be in just one little category, because God has the wide open door in every single ministry and way in which women can moving these days. Yes, in the Wesleyan Church, we are moving rapidly in women and the church accepting women in leadership. So just for an example, in 2010, as far as lead pastors, women who were lead pastors or solo pastors or co-pastors, we were only at 2%, and we've moved up now at over 8% of all of our congregations are led by women, either as a solo pastor, a lead pastor. A lead pastor means they have staff, or a co-pastor. So it's moving quite rapidly.
Yeah.
And we have one woman who's pastoring a church of over 2,000 now. This is lead pastor.
Yeah.
Pretty amazing.